That's a June.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's a good deal, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to that.
Yeah.
It's on a Tuesday, so it doesn't interfere with work.
Everybody see this in their packets? Was
Yeah.
Tuesday class on zoning.
Yep.
Richard, did you see this in your package as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, do I fill
Dana's
it up?
going.
I'm gonna be going, so I can bring stuff back for the board.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I can't make it.
In fact, I got it right here.
I'll get a copy of that from you, Dana, and I'll pass it out to the rest of the board.
Okay. Leo?
Yeah.
We're on TV.
Okay.
Give them till 10 down.
We'll start and we'll see what happens.
We didn't have any phone calls from him today.
No? Okay, we'll bring the Newmarket Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting of May 8, 2006 to order. Guess we're not gonna have a secretary either, are we?
That's surprising, she didn't call either. Anticipated her to be here as well,
Who's that?
our secretary.
Yeah.
She hasn't been to a couple of meetings, has she?
Well, they said she wouldn't be for a month or so, that someone died or something, and she would be missing, but I thought that's gone by now, but unless maybe they're not going to, they're just gonna work from the minutes, I mean, from
On the tape, probably.
On the tape.
tape, yeah. Okay, the agenda for tonight, The first order of business, regular business, is a consideration of a request for a rehearing for the following application requested by Roseanne Quacks, 332 Waterley Falls Road, Newmarket, New Hampshire. The application for variance was originally approved on March 27, 2006. The variance was applied by Laura and Stephen Long. Variance reference section 701B4 of the Newmarket zoning ordinance. The applicants requested a variance to permit an automobile towing service to be conducted off premises with the parking of one flatbed recovery tow truck in the driveway of the residence, where parking of vehicles weighing more than 1.5 ton is not permitted under section 701B4. The property is located at 234 South Main Street, tax map U4, lot 72 in the R2 zone.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would you like to note that Mr. Glennon wasn't here at that decision?
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far yet,
I'm
but
sorry.
I'll get there later.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay. For the public to know, this is a request for rehearing of a variance that we granted, and this is just a determination by the board as to whether or not they would grant the rehearing. If the board votes to grant the rehearing, then notices will be sent out to all the abutters, and public notices in the town hall and post office and everything will have to be reposted. We'll have to start over again as it was for the original rehearing. So this is just a discussion amongst the board members as to whether or not we would grant the request for a rehearing. There'd be no public input, it will be just a discussion amongst us. Then a motion will be made as to whether or not to grant the rehearing. All right, according to our Board of Adjustment 2006 handbook, in order to submit a motion for rehearing, a person must have standing, that is, legal right to challenge the board's decision. Abutters have standing along with persons who own property close enough to the land in question to demonstrate that they are affected directly by the board's action. That is, a person aggrieved. The board should evaluate the impact of ZB action on a person requesting the rehearing to determine if they are aggrieved and have standing to file a motion. The motion should not be granted if the person requesting the rehearing is not impacted directly than the public at large. That's one of the criteria we have to go by to determine whether to grant a rehearing. The second criteria is if there's new evidence presented that might change the board's decision, facts that were not available at the time of the original hearing. The third possible reason for granting a rehearing is to, if the board feels they've made a mistake based on new evidence or whatever, then they can grant a rehearing. Now, Dana, have you read your minutes and everything so far, so you feel you're up to date enough
Yes,
to?
yes, I do, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I do. Thank you for asking.
So that's, you will then be considered a member of the board for this hearing. I guess the first question is whether the people, the Roseanne Quacks, people who are the ones who have requested the rehearing, I think we have to make a determination as to whether they have standing and whether they have been aggrieved by the decision, by what the decision reads here is they are not abutters. I guess but they live a mile away from the site where the variance was granted. They are in a different zone. They are in the R1 zone versus the R2 zone. And so I guess that should be the first thing we would decide is whether they have standing to file this request for a rehearing. Have any comments from board members on that?
If I'm thinking of what you just read to us, I don't think they were aggrieved, and I don't think we have to have a request a rehearing on this. I didn't know if anybody else wants to discuss anything about it.
Dana,
Dana.
one of the areas that you mentioned, and again, R1 and R2 zone are two different zones, but Mr. Long is using, I believe, the hardship of 152. That was the precedent in which it was set to grant that variance because of the uniqueness of 152.
That was one of the
Conditions.
Many.
One of many.
One of the
right.
4 criteria, I guess, that we
Right.
figured uniqueness. It was 152 was a public road. They had a 20-foot wide driveway granted from the state for them, and where it was located.
Right.
Those were I think it was 4 criteria that were used. And
So 152 really is a fairly long road. So if you're
Yeah.
going to look at it that way, basing it on the fact that it was a 152, R1, R2 zone was never mentioned in that decision process. I would disagree with the hardship of 152 solely being that hardship there, as part of other conditions too.
no, it's not hardship, it's uniqueness.
Uniqueness.
Is whether there is a uniqueness to the property, and these criteria that we decided we put on was these are the items that made it unique, I guess.
Can we state for public record what those uniqueness were, because we were never broadcast before?
It's in the minutes.
However, I would like the public to know what those are. The public will have access to the minutes.
Oh, yeah, okay. The other part that became in this is that this is an R2 zone, and it's a transition zone between the business section and the downtown and the R1 zone, which is the residential. And that's what the discussion we brought up that night, that's why.
So that was one of those out of the 4.
Right, and the 4, I guess, where the property is located on Route 152, there are only 26 properties in the R2 zone on Route 152. Route 152 is a state road and therefore different than all other roads within the R2 district. The driveway was adequate to park the tow truck and the other vehicles. Those are the 4 criteria that the board found unique. I mean, it's not unique from everyone, but the uniqueness in general from the properties. Things to add? Do you have anything more, Dana?
I believe Mrs. Quacks rather, mentioned that criteria number 3 had not been met.
We're not going, that would be if we get
If we
by,
decide to go into,
if we get by that they do have standing, then we would go into the second and third criteria of why you granted the variance. The first thing we have to decide is if the applicant has standing. If they have standing, then we'll go through the second criteria as to whether or not we made a mistake or there is evidence that was not presented, it was not available at the time, it is available now, but that won't be done
So we're
now.
just going to decide tonight whether we want to hear this or not,
That's all.
and then we will set another date to hear it. So there would be no further discussion other than the fact that, do we want to rehear this
Right,
again?
that's all we're doing tonight. We're not going to
Mm-hmm.
take any testimony or whatever. If the board feels
Mm-hmm.
that, yes, the person has standing, yes, there was evidence
Yep.
available now in Mrs. Quack's presentation that was not available when
Well,
the first thing was.
Right. Well, based on what I've read, I certainly would think that there's some questionable things in here, so, and not being at the
Well,
last meeting,
not-
so.
not- we're not discussing
Yeah,
that.
I know what you're saying.
We're discussing right now whether or not there is standing.
Mhm.
And then if the board feels there is standing, then we will go
Right.
to
To the next step.
the next step.
You have anything
And
to add?
I personally don't feel that there is standing. The motion should not be granted if the person requesting hearing is not impacted different than the public at large, and there is no evidence that they are impacted more than the rest of the people in that whole area. And I guess that's the,
I see no standing either.
so I guess
I'd like to make a motion,
okay.
if it's okay at this time.
I guess if there's no other comment on it, we should take a motion to see whether they have standing, and if there is,
I would-
well, if there is standing, then we'll go to item 2.
I would comment on that if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think, I believe it was Richard Bowen who had submitted the first motion for approval, and the discussion after his motion was the uniqueness of the property. What he found and commented to the board at that time was that he felt that Route 152 was the uniqueness of it. Now, I don't think he was specific to say that 152 was only in front of Mr. Long's house. I think he referred to 152 as Route 152. So I would suspect that anybody who is abuts Route 152 would have standing to request for the rehearing, as 152 was the reason for the approval.
No, there's only one of the reasons. The other, and I guess the
Fine.
question is, whether we did state in our uniqueness, that it was confined to the R2 zone. It's only, there's a uniqueness in that this was only affecting the R2 zone, which was a transition zone between the residential R1 zone and the downtown business zone. So,
And she's not in that zone,
She's on 152.
yeah.
but
yeah.
she's not
Not
in
the
that
R2
zone.
I think that's irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think we discussed because it was the zone.
Right.
I think it was discussed because it was Route 152.
No, I
There
think
there was no discussion that I read in the minutes indicating Zone 1, Zone 2. It was a uniqueness because of the 152 road.
152.
no, I don't think so. I think what I
That
just read
standing, she
is
should
that,
at least be in that zone. My point.
I don't think the law or the ordinance speaks of being in that zone.
yes, that's one of the conditions in that zone, is the R2 zone. There were 26 properties in the R2 zone. That was one of the uniqueness, and they're different than other roads within the R2 district. I think we,
Can we base it on the evaluation of properties?
okay.
Up to the chairman.
There's no further discussion. We should have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the request for rehearing of variance granted on March 27, 2006 for 234 South Main Street be denied, as the applicant requesting the rehearing is neither an abutter. They live a mile away. They live in another zoning district, R1 versus R2, and have not shown that they are grieved by the granting of the ordinance.
We have a second to the
I'll
motion.
second that motion.
Discussion on the motion. All those in favor of
Well,
the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the request for rehearing is denied. The applicant can petition Superior Court to overturn our ruling if they so wish. Next item of business is Hubert Buchanan, variance reference section 702C3 and section 303B of the Newmarket zoning ordinance. The applicant requests variance to permit up to 3 residential units as part of a mixed office and residential use renovation at 178 South Main Street, tax map U3, lot 152, the M2 zone. This is formerly the Newmarket Fire Station. Representing the applicant,
Yes.
Gil?
Yep. I'm Mike Sievert with MJS Engineering, representing the applicant. Hubert Buchanan is here with us tonight. Just for a clarification on the number of units, our cover letter explained that we're requesting 2 units and a maximum of up to 3 units. And the reason for that was because as we started talking about the building a little bit further, we looked at maybe the marketability of it and having a larger commercial unit downstairs. Would that be as marketable as maybe a smaller unit? And if we got permitted up to 3 units, that'd give some flexibility of maybe changing part of that downstairs into another unit or incorporating some of that in there if a smaller office was needed. One reason for mentioning that was just to let you know that we may come back and ask for that, so that if you see us in a month or two, you don't look at me and say, why didn't you ask last time? The reason we're not asking right now is because we just want to get started on looking at the layout. That building is, as you may all well know, you've probably been in it, is chopped up. It's got some different areas in there, so we want to start looking at how that all lays out and what sizes of units we can get and so forth, whether or not the attic is usable and those kinds of things. So tonight, just to clarify everything, as we were requesting a mixed use with 2 units on the second floor and a commercial on the first floor. And that's it. And we need a variance for that also. And like you said, that was from section 3.03 because of density. And also, because of this mixed use, the 7.02C3 also requires density. And the reason for that is the density chart says that we are allowed we're allowed 6 units per acre. We have 0.19 acres. I do have the map here just in case. So that would allow us 1 unit. And then when you go to the 7.02C3,
0.19 is 6 units would be just under 3 units would be allowed, wouldn't it?
nope, 0.19 acres.
Yeah, if it was 0.2, oh yeah, okay, 5.2, yeah, okay, 0.2,
So it's just,
right, okay.
it's about a little over a unit.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So, but then when you go to the mixed use in the 7.02, it actually takes away a unit. The mix. So again, now we're down to 0 units. So we're here for a variance, but it's the same thing. It's a density variance, but it is from 2 of your 2 parts of your regulation. So that's
I think, Mike, that really, when you go to mixed use, 303B really falls out of the picture. 702C3
Yeah.
takes in. 303B is density for
Right.
just multifamily, whatever.
okay.
And when you come into 702C3, I think you fall out of your regular density and you go into mixed use, if that's what you're going into. So I think we can sort of forget about 303B, because 702C is superseding when you go into mixed use.
Okay.
You still have the 6 units per acre, so I guess it
That's-
does still come in to.
Somehow.
Right,
just
come in. So I guess you
limiting
do
that.
have both of them, right.
I think if, it would be the same. I think the way, we looked at it as whether or not we needed to actually have 2 variance requests, but being the same thing, I think
Yeah.
the argument would be the exact same thing in
The
each
argument
case
would be
because
the
it's
same, yeah,
density.
you're right.
So we wrote it up like this, that the variance would not be contrary to the public interest because we feel that, utilizing the existing building and bringing it back to use both in the mixed use, renovating the building and keeping the historic building there it would not be contrary to the public interest. That would be a good thing.
Okay, Mike, now, the way we've been doing these variance requests, we've been going over each one individually. We go over the first one, ask any questions, we open a public hearing, any comments, we close the public hearing, then we vote as to whether or not you complied with that section. Then we
Okay.
go to the second one and third.
Okay.
Then when we get back
Great.
to the end of it, we then would accept a motion to grant the variances based on all the criteria having been met.
Okay. You want me to
Yeah,
stop
if
right there
we're,
then for your
Does the board
explanation?
have any other questions before we start going through the various criteria?
You made a statement that the commercial would be, place would be on the top floor,
No.
No, the first floor,
first floor.
Yeah.
And apartments should be above.
the second, yes.
Okay.
Any other
Want
questions?
to clarify that.
Yep.
We're going question. I'm still confused. 3 units upstairs,
2,
2 units upstairs. Okay, and those will be residential.
yes.
Okay. And nothing in the attic at this point, you're saying?
I don't know if I want to say that for sure. If the 2 units incorporated the attic in some way, so be it, but not a 3rd unit in the attic.
Okay, so in other words, you could probably take the ceiling out and go right to the rafters,
Yep,
to the 3rd. Okay.
yep, or access, yeah.
Basically, all we are discussing is the density one. When they go to the planning board for site plan, is when they will be discussing the layout, how the units are gonna be, and all they're asking us here is to grant a density variance for basically 3 units, Mike?
2,
Or 3,
2 residential.
right. 2 residential and 1.
so basically, according 702C, we have to grant a variance allowing 3 units, 2 residentials and 1 commercial.
Okay, well then, that's not how I understand it, because I was just looking at the residential part, just that residential density. So I was looking at it as coming in for a variance because we couldn't meet that residential density. And the only reason I say that is because the bottom floor of the building is 2,600 square feet plus or minus. So if he rented 2 1,200 or 2 1,000 square foot offices, I wouldn't want to be limited to,
No, all
One
of
office.
the downstairs is, as 702C says, downstairs, on mixed use.
mixed use.
The retail or commercial, it counts as 1 unit, no matter how big it is, no matter how it's chopped up.
Okay, so,
It's considered as 1 unit. So if you were gonna have 5 residential upstairs and a commercial, you would need the density for 6 units. If you had two residentials and a commercial, then you would need 3. That's the way we've
it's the way you have it.
passed, is that, that's what 702C says, is that if there's, on mixed use, the commercial is considered 1 unit, plus all the residentials. So
Okay.
the way you're talking now is you're requesting a variance for 3 units, 2 residentials and 1 commercial.
Yeah, let me just look at
I
that.
have a question.
Yeah.
The commercial unit downstairs,
Yeah.
can he have more than one tenant?
Sure,
Okay,
whatever site plan will allow him. That's
Okay.
not our business. Our
Okay.
business is only as to whether or not we will grant a density variance because he only has .19
yeah.
acres
Right.
and,
Okay,
right.
That-
So
that's
all
great.
we're
3.
into. Everything else will
Yeah.
be decided at the planning board level. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, should we, for public purposes, read what the density is saying now, what the criterias are, so the public has an idea to where we're going with this?
I think Mike said that the density for this zone is 6 units per acre,
Okay, and he's only at 0.19.
acres, yes.
Okay, so that's where he's coming in to get that change,
Right.
to get a variance for that, rather.
yes.
Right, yes.
Okay, so just as
According
long as the public
to-
understands it, too.
According to the real zoning, he doesn't even have the acreage for 1 unit,
Right, okay.
mine 3.
So we don't get into any of the, like you said earlier, if he had X number of square feet downstairs and he wants to break it up to 5 commercial entities, we don't get into any of the parking issues or any of that.
No, no,
Okay.
that's all site plan. This
Site
is
plan,
just
okay.
zoning, density, that's all we're talking about now.
And he has to meet these criteria as to why we should grant him that variance.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You mean the zoning? the-
Yeah, criteria,
Right,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
You all set?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We will, I gotta get my papers here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So the variance will not be contrary to public. I don't even know.
Okay,
He was having a pig farm.
the first item on a variance is that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Okay, Mike, you wanna?
Again, I just was saying that it isn't contrary, because we're reusing that existing building, keeping the historic building, and getting the, I think, similar type of uses that are in the town and in that area right there, where you've got the mixed use with commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor, so.
Okay. Board have any questions? I'll open a public hearing. Any members in the public have any questions? Yes. Nothing? No, you have to speak up there, otherwise the,
Okay,
won't pick
records
it
it.
up.
You're the owners? Hi, I'm Fred Howe, I own the house right next door. Hi.
Yeah, do give your name and address,
Fred Howe, I am the owner of 180 Main Street.
and that
and,
is west of the fire
Between the
station?
Catholic Church Rectory and the old fire station.
All right, yeah.
Now, I was looking at the parking setup here. One thing I noticed is that this is varied somewhat from what it was when the fire station was there, which was similar spaces here on the, in the direction of the downtown. These spaces here were parallel to the fence and were just a couple of spaces usually. And it just points up that the density of the parking is increased. That's one thing, one question I have for you to consider, please. And the other thing is plowing snow, which the city often did right against the fence there. And I think they would probably replace that fence 3 times in the period that I owned that building because it was damaged time and time again. So I have landscaping on the other side, so that's a concern.
That is information that would be helpful to the planning board as they set conditions for the parking, for snow removal. That will all, after this, if they get the approval for density, then they go for site plan review from the planning board. The planning board then goes through all the criteria parking, snow removal, traffic, or aesthetics and all of this. We're
Okay.
not into that now. All we're working as to whether this would be in the public interest.
Okay.
The final design will come at the planning board hearing.
And I also have a question that was actually raised by Mr. Bowen. I had the same
Who
question
that-
that you had.
I
Oh.
think we're gonna, Richie,
Richard Shell.
move your.
Wrong sign.
Richard, move
No,
your.
he's got the right sign there.
Oh, okay, I was looking at a different one there. Mr. Shelton, okay. And that was the question about if it's one commercial space, how many tenants are in one commercial space? And that I find confusing too. So
Yeah,
I just
that-
want you to consider those
Now,
things.
that would be what comes under the site plan. When it goes to the planning board, they will have to say how many offices is gonna be in there, what type of offices are gonna be there, what the traffic is going to be, that type of information.
right.
We don't know that now.
Yeah,
I didn't
and-
run
right.
that far.
Okay, I understand. And I did come in, it was, the notice that was sent to me did specify 3 residential spaces, which is, I find that no problem. Somewhat more concern if one is a commercial space.
Okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you. Have any other comments? Yes, please.
Karen Cotton, U3, Lot 153, One South Street, directly behind the property. When you talk about 3, how many bedrooms are you talking in these units?
Yeah, you asked me and we'll ask them.
Okay, I'm
if
just
they know.
curious,
Right.
just to get a feel for what's going to be there. Do they, how many bedrooms with this density
If they
thing?
know, then they can tell you. A lot of times at this stage of they haven't really gone into the design until they have gotten the density approval,
But-
then they will design based on the density they've been given.
But that's what I'm at, well, one of the things that I'm confused at, density. How many units, or how many bedrooms, or how many people would be living in there? Because there, again, the density does affect, if you're putting in, 3 bedrooms, that would be, 2 units with 3 bedrooms, or 2 units with 1 bedroom. And my other question was, if they don't know that now, that, there again, that's a density issue. How many people living on that one little lot? And the cars, and the business, what type of business are they looking to put in there?
That, very good questions that should be asked at the planning board level as to what they're going to do on that.
So how can you give them a variance on density?
Well, it's just based on the conditions of the criteria that we have to work with is whether it's reasonable. Because right now, basically zoning is set up for new zoning, like 2-acre zoning and everything. And the reason they have variances is because there's a lot of lots that predate zoning, which
I understand
if we
that.
didn't have the ability to grant variances, these lots couldn't be used. And so that's why you have to balance something between, what is reasonable on a lot, because it wasn't built with original zoning in mind.
I guess, can I ask, do they plan on making any structural changes to the building?
You
I
can
mean,
ask that, yeah, if they know.
You mean like on the outside of it?
yes.
The big white doors will probably go, and
I'm-
it'll try to generally look like the original elementary school. It would have 3 windows that match and everything symmetrical with perhaps center. Yeah,
Okay.
we want it to look pretty good instead of.
Like a fire
Like
station.
a garage with people working on cars and things like, which could go in. We try to avoid that.
Well, That
Well, I
was,
was thinking, maybe like a law office or something like that.
okay.
We just don't have the answers.
And as long as
Until
there's
we have
no,
somebody who can design all this, we really don't know.
I guess I'm a little confused too, because I just thought maybe you would have, if you had some idea how many units that you could get in there. but I guess you haven't gotten that far, so,
Right, they've got to get through this board first.
okay.
And then after they get through this board, then they can start designing, depending on the density we've granted them, so they can go to the planning board. Right now, they can't even go to the planning board
Okay.
until they get through.
One other question that I had noticing, walking here when I'm looking at your parking, what is the regulation with parking within, by a fire hydrant?
Please say 15 feet.
Because there is a fire hydrant
I
right there.
realize that, yeah.
So-
They would have to meet whatever the requirements are, and that's when you go through site plan. Site plan goes to the fire chief,
Okay.
the public works, the, everything, and then they make sure that these various items are addressed as part of site plan regulations.
Okay. Still, thank you.
We'll tell you what's going on.
Do you have any other comments
Here's your phone number.
to the public? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion amongst the board members as to whether they feel. I guess we got, going back to our old criteria, we have to do two things. We have to find a statement of facts, then we have to have a motion based on a statement of facts. Statement of facts would be something that we find that this variance will not be contrary to public interest because, and then a motion to,
I'll make a motion that, well, the variance will not be contrary to public interest because they'll be taking an existing building and restoring it probably back to its original condition, which would be an improvement for the whole town.
any discussion on that? Finding of fact? Can we get a motion that the board finds that this variance will not be contrary to the public interest?
In fact, it would enhance that area.
We have a motion that the board finds that this will not be contrary to the public interest. I would make the motion that the board finds that granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest. We have a second.
Second that motion.
Discussion on the motion.
I just, maybe I'm not understanding this, but I just find it weird that we don't even know what's gonna go in there, but whatever it is, it's not gonna be contrary to the public interest.
Well,
I find that hard to believe, but.
an office or commercial unit underneath and two residential spaces upstairs is not contrary. The board finds it's not contrary to the public interest. We don't know what's gonna.
I know, that's what I'm saying, that's the
I
hard
know,
part.
it's
yeah.
just.
Planning board issue.
Yeah, no, it's a hard, I know, it's very hard. I guess another way of looking at it is, it's not contrary to the public's interest, because if it was like a pig farm, then it would be a problem.
Yeah,
So
right.
with residential upstairs and office space downstairs, yes, I can see that, but I'm like with that lady over there saying, Miss Cotton is, I
Yeah.
don't even know what's gonna go in there,
That's
other
right.
than, you know?
But you can find that, hey, it would be in the public interest if
Right.
this gets done this way, and we would have greater tax revenue. That's in the public interest.
Yeah, it is, no, so
Yeah.
I would agree, I mean, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
argue the
I
point,
know,
I'm just
I-
was confused myself.
And you're gonna find a lot of these things are
Yeah.
coming back to the same thing.
Mr. Chairman, here's
Yeah.
the permitted uses.
Can you state what they are?
Well,
they a lot?
there's a number of
There's
them,
wow.
about 20-some odd ones.
Okay,
but the table of permitted uses does indicate which uses are permitted through the ordinance.
Yeah,
And
like
if-
office, retail, restaurant,
residential.
wholesale. There's a lot of them
Is
that are.
residential in there?
Yeah, residential,
Yeah, so-
single-family and duplex residential
Duplex.
is permitted use. Multifamily is not permitted use, it's
No.
permitted by special exception. If
Well,
they,
if you're gonna have two residentials, then
that's duplex.
Duplex.
That's allowed.
okay.
There's
So
an
the
X on
duplex
that.
residential is permitted,
That's
And what
permitted.
zone is that in?
M2.
M2,
M2, an
yeah.
M2 zone?
Yeah.
Okay.
So really what the applicant is before us with this evening, both, if they were singular, they would both be permitted by the ordinance.
Mhm.
The fact that the applicant is here this evening because it's a mixed use.
No, because
Of
the
the,
density, he doesn't
density.
have the density
The
for what
density
he's
of it.
proposing.
But it's-
Yeah, it's
okay.
not, it's not a use
Not mixed
variance,
use,
it's a density variance.
density. Because of the use that he wants is the residential and the commercial.
Right,
One is part of the other, to a degree.
right.
We still discussing?
Yeah, we're still discussing, we have a motion and a second, and,
Okay, we're already a step ahead right now because the variance that's put before us was for 3 residential units plus the commercial.
they
So
changed
we're
that.
down to 2.
Yeah.
And 1 commercial, so it's already enhanced for what goes in there.
Right, okay. So we're, that's, just remember, that's right, we're only talking about two,
It's a matter of record, want to spell
Okay.
it out.
all those in favor?
Calls it.
All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye, and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the second criteria is it is the board's conclusion that special conditions exist such that a literal enforcement of the ordinance results in unnecessary hardship. Excuse me. Oh, boy. What do we got? Good. Phew. I thought you had the simplex analysis, and I was gonna say, oh, we're in trouble. But no, the Bosher analysis is, because this is not a use variance, it's a density variance, therefore it comes under Bosher, not simplex.
Right. Why was simplex put in there? Is that an
Well,
error?
If they were granting a use variance, we would have to go through the simplex criteria.
Okay.
But we're talking about a area variance, which is, this is what this is, so we're going under the Bosher analysis. Under the Bosher analysis, there's 2 sections, and that's what we're gonna go. The first area under Bosher is the area variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. Mike?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that we are under the Bosher analysis, and that's how it's laid out on your addendum there that I've written up. Under this, an area variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. Again, this lot, the special condition here is the existing lot of record. It's .19 acres. It doesn't meet the density requirement. And the density here tonight, I think everybody's getting too far off track, but the density is only for the number of units, not the number of people or bedrooms. So
Right.
at this point, we have to remember that we're only here for the number of units. We're really asking for the variance just for those units being the whole place, not the number of people or anything. So that might be the confusing part. But anyway, the land, we're here because of the land, and like I said before, because we are under the mixed use, we're even minus the 1, so we're down to 0 units of residential. I'm going to go to number 2 right now, or?
No,
just
no,
take-
we're gonna go through that. We're gonna fight it out slow but sure, because that's what the attorney says we have to do. All right, do we have any questions from the board? on section 1 of the hardship criteria? Not, I'll open a public hearing. Does any of the public have any comments on whether the special conditions exist that little enforcement of the ordinance results in unnecessary hardship? Close the public hearing. Any further discussion on the board? Not a finding of fact is, finding of fact could be the existing land does not allow any use, any mixed use of the property, therefore that in itself is a hardship.
I thought I said it did.
I didn't hear the comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I thought it was stated earlier that it was allowed a mixed use.
Pardon?
Did you not just state that the hardship is because it was not allowed a mixed use?
No, the hardship is that there is no use allowed under our density ordinance, not even one.
Okay.
Because you need a sixth, at least a sixth of an acre, which is .187.
So therefore, the existing lot does not contain enough land to allow the applicant to pursue the desired proposed mixed-use renovation.
Right.
So if there's not enough land, he wants us to go ahead and say he can do 3 units
Right.
under the 0.19
Right,
acres.
right, that's what he's asking. We agree that the existing land does not allow any mixed use, is therefore a hardship. It was a finding of fact. Board agrees that a motion is in order to find that there's no fair and substantial relation between the general purpose of zoning ordering and the specific restriction on the property.
I'll make that motion that you just,
There's no fair and substantial relation exists between the general purpose of zoning ordinance and the restriction on the property.
right.
We have a second on that.
Second that.
Yeah, second by Gill. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The hell? Oh my God, I'm in the wrong book here. I've been reading the Simplex, and we're talking about the area. All right, we're starting over again. The applicant seeking is the Bosher and Allen, and the first hardship criteria is the area variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. I think we can find the same finding of fact as the mixed use. The existing land does not allow any. So we have to do your motion, Richard. Find that the motion that the area variance is needed to enable applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property.
Well, the property as it is doesn't qualify for anything unless we give it the variance.
That's right, and that's basically what this
Yeah,
says.
right.
The variance is needed to enable the applicant's
Right.
proposed use of property.
Special conditions of the
Yeah,
property.
special conditions exist that
Right.
applicant proposed use of the property needs the variance.
You second that, Gil?
Yeah. Uh-huh. May we?
Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye, and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
That was a scratch.
Okay, the second hardship criteria on the brochure, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
Under this criteria, we, again, are not allowed the residential density. So there's, the only way to get the residential density is to request a variance for that density. And, you know, we're further penalized by going to the mixed use, which I believe is a use that's actually allowed in the zone and looked at as a plus. It takes that residential piece away even one step further. So again, we're going from 0 at the mixed use to try and get the 2 residential units and then 1 commercial.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? Now we close the public hearing. Discussion from the board. Finding of fact from the board.
Well, the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method. They have a home in the rear, a home on one side, and it just sits on a corner lot. So there's no way to increase the size of the lot.
Board agree with that finding of fact? Motion is in order.
I'll make a motion to grant a variance, as there is no reasonable feasible way to increase the size of the lot, as there's a residential home to the rear and on one side, and the property is abutted by 2 roads.
We have a second on that motion.
Second that motion.
Discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're through the hardship criteria. Now we're back into the general criteria. The third general criteria, the variance is consistent, not consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. Mike?
We believe it's consistent with the spirit of the ordinance because your regulations allow for commercial uses in the M2, also for residential uses in the M2. Even duplexes are allowed, and mixed use is allowed. So by renovating the building into a combination, we feel that that does meet the spirit of the ordinance.
Thank you. Open the public hearing. Do you have any comment from the public on whether the variance is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance? Yes.
I just Just clarify for me again, because I am confused,
Okay?
and I'm not necessarily against this, I just want to be clear about it. What I came in for tonight said, request variances to permit up to 3 residential units, correct? 3 residential
Oh,
units,
they've changed that to 2 now.
as part of a mixed office and residential use.
They've
So you-
asked for 2
Okay.
residential uses and 1 commercial.
Okay, that is what you asked for commercial?
they
One
changed it.
commercial area and residential?
And 2, yeah,
Okay, all right. I just wanted to really make sure I was clear.
okay, thank you. Have any other comments from the public? I'll close the public hearing. We would, finding a fact,
Well, the fact is, it's in the spirit of the ordinance because they'll be improving the building that's there now as the building sits empty. And I think it would be in line with our Newmarket master plan.
It would also increase the tax base.
And yes, correct.
Second that motion.
no, it's not a motion, that's finding a fact.
The fact, okay.
The fact.
We're gonna get this, it'll take us time, we're gonna hopefully get this new. But in just about the time we'll have it down pat, the Supreme Court's gonna come out with another ruling that's gonna turn this on its head, and we're gonna have to start all over again. First they had Simplex, now they got Bosher, and who knows what the next one's gonna be. Okay, motion now. That the variance is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance.
Well, as of now, the building is empty. By renovating the building and adding to the tax base of the town of Newmarket, it is in the spirit of the ordinance.
Need a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Oh, Dana got in before you.
All right.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the 4th criteria is the board's conclusion that substantial justice is done. The criteria in Bosher states that substantial justice is done if the benefit to the applicant outweighs the harm to the public. That's about the only way that they sort of defined it. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, the benefit or the substantial justice would be, again, to make the project viable, give the community the mixed use, which is what's allowed, and bring that building back into use in its existing condition, with the exception of the renovations that will be made, but basically keeping the historic nature of that building and then improving the aesthetics on it.
Thank you. Board have any questions? Open a public hearing. Public have any questions? Close the public hearing. Finding of fact by the board.
Well, finding of fact is, without allowing the renovation that they're proposing to us, the project will not take place.
And no tax revenues would be achieved. Okay, motion based on the finding of fact.
I'll make a motion that granting the mixed-use renovation to make the project economically viable, substantial justice will be done.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion on motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the last one is the board's conclusion, the value of surrounding properties will not be diminished. Finding of fact?
We believe that they won't be diminished by bringing this property back into the similar uses in the vicinity, and also improving the aesthetics and access and use of the property.
Open the public hearing. Any comments from the public? Close the public hearing. Finding of fact?
Well, the finding of facts, by restoring the structure, the surrounding properties will not be diminished. In fact, they may enhance their values.
I definitely think it will.
Yeah.
A motion.
I'll make a motion that by allowing this project to proceed, the surrounding properties will not be diminished.
Another project was granting a variance.
I screwed up. Supposed to tell you before we started this, that because we only have a 4-member board, you may continue this to another time if you want to wait until there's a 5-member board present, because it's easier to get 3 affirmative votes out of a 5-member board than a 4-member board. Do you wish to continue?
Yes, I looked at that in the beginning and figured my odds were okay.
You're supposed to remind me of that now.
I figured since I was going to go ahead anyway, it didn't matter.
When we got a motion by Richard, did we have a second? Second? Did someone second that motion?
Dana did.
Dana seconded it? Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we have the general granting of the variance. The fact that all criteria for variance has been met, and that a density of 3 units per 0.9 acre is granted. The other conditions or whatever wants to be made.
It'll be 3 units, 2 of which will be residential. Is that correct?
One commercial.
Right, you can do that. Motion to grant a density of 2 Okay, I got a motion to grant a density of 2 residential and 1 commercial unit on .19 acres as all the criteria for a variance have been met.
The commercial unit, which will be on the lower level. I think,
Okay, that would be sort of a condition.
yeah,
Sorry, what was the condition?
that the commercial unit would be on the lower level.
Looks like substantiated at the get-go.
We have a second to that motion to grant the variance of 2 residential and 1 commercial units on .19 acres as all the criteria for a variance have been met, and with a condition that the commercial unit will be on a lower level. Motion by Richard, second by
I'll second that.
Dana. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
I think we're done. Thank you very much. Okay, the other business we have on the agenda, on our agenda is
The only other thing you got is the minutes.
that, well, there's other business in minutes. Does that, the board have any other business?
I have a question.
Yes.
As stated earlier, Mr. Chairman, that this applicant is just leaving now, was not informed of a 5-member board, that they can wait for that 5-member board or just proceed the way they are. That, I want to be noted that that was not offered to the quacks as a, in other words.
Oh, it
It
is.
doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter, no.
Okay.
No,
It
that's
had
not-
nothing to do with.
She doesn't have
her.
any right
No,
in having
no,
5 members
no,
here?
No.
Okay,
no.
that's what I wanted to
Okay.
find out.
That was for us to meet only.
Okay.
Yeah. Gee, why do I keep losing my agenda?
This is the zoning board of adjustment. Mr. Chairman, can I just read
Yes.
this to the RSA 673-3 zoning board of adjustment, building code board of appeals. The zoning board of adjustment shall consist of 5 members. The members of the board shall either be elected in a manner prescribed.
What's your point?
Just that the board shall consist of 5 members, and in the event of an appeal, it doesn't specify that the 5 members shall be
And
present.
for an appeal, granting of an appeal does not require
Yep.
a 3-member majority. That's,
I just wanted clarification, so that I
Okay,
didn't come
that's
back to
good.
us.
okay, and any other business? If not, we'll go to the review approval of minutes of March 27th.
Right.
Got a few comments here. Okay. The first sentence that I have, I'll go mine, and you guys can, the first said that Leo Freeman ensured that each board member received a copy of new 2006 zoning regulations. I said the new 2006 State of New Hampshire Board of Adjustment Handbook. Guess on the, so for 6th line down, if only 4 members were available for the vote, and the vote was 2 in favor, 2 opposed, and no motion could be made with 3 affirmative votes could be obtained, then the motion, would be continued until the 5 members were available to vote. I guess Does anybody else have any questions on page 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? On page 7, I have Jenny Grizzle asked the board to examine the photo and relay how to park 3 vehicles. I listened to the recording, and it says, and to show how to park 3 vehicles instead of relay. I don't know what the relay means to, but it's, the recording clearly shows that Jenny said, and show how to park 3 vehicles. So she wanted to ask how people can show it. On page 12, the on the first sentence, Leo Finn explained that any law against a property owner that was not outweighed by gain to the general public is unjust. That law should be loss. That any loss against a property owner, LOSS, not LAW. I don't know what it's. Does anybody else have any other comments on the March 27, 2006 minutes? If not, a motion to,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections as stated.
we have a second.
Second that motion.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raise your right hand. Aye. Oppose?
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Dana will abstain. If there is no other business before the board, a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
The motion that we adjourn.
Dana made the motion. Gil seconded. Thank you. An hour and a half.
We're off.